This is Billy Glisson with PowerCore 360 and you're about to get geeked. In this video I'm going to show you the top thing to do to optimize your body so your golf swing is more consistent. At the end of this video I'll give you the best exercise to quickly and effectively increase your shoulder turn and the top golf drill to integrate your shoulder turn to a more consistent, powerful golf swing in just a few minutes. So the first thing we're going to talk about, maybe the most important thing that impacts shot consistency, is shoulder turn. Everybody knows you're supposed to start from your address position, your backswing, and you're supposed to start the turn of the club back staying connected. So if I took a golf club, I took the butt end of the club, point it towards the middle of my chest, towards my sternum, it's all supposed to turn back together, right? The reality is if you're older than 17 or 18 years of age, you've already started to lose some of your shoulder turn. And so what will happen for a lot of golfers is they'll start with a shoulder turn, club pointing to the middle of their sternum, but their sternum stops. The flexibility in their shoulders and their thoracic spine is limited. So their shoulder turn stops, and the rest of the club going to the top of the backswing happens with the arms and hands. That creates a lot of negative problems we want to talk about. So the first thing that's going to happen if my shoulders stop turning is when my shoulders stop, I lose the connection, my arms and hands lift the club up, and what's going to happen is on my downswing oftentimes is I'm going to be off plane with the club shaft. And I'm going to be just trying to make all kinds of manipulations with my hands and arms and everything else to get on path, to get on plane, and to square the club face up. And as you guys all know, it's really difficult to do that consistently from swing to swing, especially when there's some competitive juices flowing and I'm a little nervous. The smaller muscles of the hands and arms tense up and it's just very difficult to be consistent. The second issue is the swing sequence of the downswing. If I have a really connected swing and everything turns to the top of the backswing and I'm still pretty well connected, I've got a full shoulder turn here, what's going to happen is, really what happens in the body is the turn of my body loads up muscles and connective tissue in my legs, my hips, my abs, my shoulders, and my arms. And basically I start my downswing with my legs and hips going, and that stretch that's created in all these muscles and connective tissue sequences the downswing correctly. My hips start to turn. The turn of the hips starts to turn my shoulders, and then everything's coming down and in sequence, and then the club and arms are going to follow. What happens is if I don't have good shoulder turn, I'm going to turn to the top of my backswing, sternum stops, shoulders stop, arms get off path and off plane, and instead of now getting to the turn where I'm loading up into the muscles and connective tissues through my legs, my hips, my core, they don't get loaded. What gets loaded is my hands, my arms, my upper body, and it's like a slingshot. These are the rubber bands in the sling, and basically what happens is instead of my lower half going first, my hands and arms get loaded and automatically the body starts to fire that down. I can come down over the top, or I come down, I get off path, I get off plane, and once again from a consistency perspective, it's very difficult to be consistent there. In terms of power, I'm losing all the power from my hips, my legs. What I want to be able to do is not have my arms and hands load prematurely. I want to be able to turn my shoulders, stay connected, get everything turned up there to the top, and now everything's loaded. And all I have to do is I don't even have to think about it. My body's wound up into all these elastic tissues, and my body's going to start to unwind, starting with my hips, turning my shoulders, and let the club come down through more naturally. So we're talking about shoulder turn, and more correctly we ought to be talking about thoracic spine turn, because that's really the part of your body and really specifically the part of your spine that should be turning. When I turn my shoulders back, it's really my thoracic spine. The thoracic spine is the upper part of the spine that goes from the bottom of the rib cage to the top of the shoulders. This is a spine model here, so here's the back of your head, here's the back of your neck. Your thoracic spine goes from about here to here. It is 12 vertebrae that are stacked vertically up and down. When we're working to turn our shoulders, it's really that part of the spine that's turning. It's designed to turn. The reality is, though, for a lot of golfers, they don't have good shoulder turn because they've lost the ability for those joints to turn, to be mobile. It's a flexibility and a strength issue. So let's go into a golf posture. Let's go into a dress. And I'm going to give you a visual, then I'm going to want you to try and see if you have a T-spine deficit, a restriction there. So if I go into a dress, I get a little loaded, and all I'm going to do is start my backswing with my shoulder turn, trying to stay connected, I'm going to start to try to come up to the top. When I get to the top of the backswing, what should happen is if I have normal shoulder turn, I should have about 45 degrees turn from my hips, right? From 0 degrees, my hips should turn about 45 degrees. I'm looking for a 90-degree shoulder turn. I'd like my left shoulder to be able to point to you straight to the camera. If I have normal hip flexibility, normal hip mobility through my hips to turn my hips 45 degrees, I should be able to get my shoulders through and be able to get the club shaft up and get parallel there. Where you can see I'm short of parallel. And I'm actually, as I get to about right there, I feel the tightness through my thoracic spine, right? So I want you to try this. I want you to do the same thing. Get into your address posture. I want you to turn just slowly to the top of your backswing. Try to stay connected, right? If you can't get your left shoulder pointing straight ahead, then there's a really good chance your thoracic spine is restricted, and you'll probably feel it. That's good, because if it is, we're going to show you in just a minute how to correct that. All right, so I'm going to introduce a term called spine angle. And it's a technical term, but it's actually really important that you understand what it means. If I start into my address posture, and I start my connected backswing, and I get to the top, and once again I'm looking for hip turn 45 degrees, shoulder turn to 90 to point straight ahead. If I'm not there, that's where a lot of the manipulation starts. If I don't get there, I know I've got to be able to get behind the ball. I know I've got to be able to drop my hands and arms down behind the ball so I have an inside-out path. What often happens once again is one of two things will happen. Either my sternum, my T-spine will stop turning and I'll disconnect and get my arms up here, right? Once again, we talked about the issues that causes. Or I'll do what everybody tells you to do. I'll try to do is I'm going to try to get my left shoulder right underneath my chin or my left shoulder over my right foot. Well, if my T-spine won't allow me to get there, I'm going to figure out a different way to do that. So I might do something like this. I might turn way over there and get my left shoulder pointed to the camera and over my right leg. But here's where the spine angle comes in, right? I'm going to try to give you a visual of this. If I'm standing up tall, from my head down to my tailbone is where my spine is. And so this yellow line right now is indicating the angle of my spine. It's straight up and down. When I set up at address, there should be just a slight, right? We drop our right shoulder, and what that does is it tips our spine angle backwards, but it should still be straight. So right now, that's really good. If I take my backswing, and I really want to turn around my spine. I turn my hips, I turn my shoulders. If I have full shoulder turn, right? I'm going to be able to get to the top and still maintain that spine angle, right? Which is really important. Watch what happens to my spine angle, though, if my shoulder turn is restricted. If I get to the top, once again, I'm going to try to get behind the ball. I need to be able to drop my hands and arms in behind the ball. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my spine angle to get my left shoulder over my right leg. Two things happen. Either in this case, I really didn't turn any more at my shoulders. I actually turned at my hips and I over-rotated at my hips, right? More importantly, I just changed my spine angle. Now when I come on my downswing, I got to come back. In the perfect world, if I'm consistent, I'm just turning around my spine here, right? I'm turning around my hips and turning around my spine, and I can have a much more consistent and actually much more powerful swing. But in this case, if I get way over here, my spine angle changes, and that introduces all kinds of inconsistencies in the swing. So I got to be really careful about where my spine is. I need to maintain that spine angle just about maybe 5 degrees backwards. Okay, so now we're going to dig a little deeper and actually a little more specifically in to see if you're really restricted with your thoracic spine turn or your shoulder turn. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put basically a little alignment rod. I'm going to put it across the front of my chest. I'm sitting on a ball, and more importantly now I'm squeezing with my thighs on this other ball. What that does is it locks down my hips from turning. And it's really going to allow me to look at an isolated kind of perspective of how much shoulder turn do I have both to the right and to the left. As a right-handed golfer, first I'm just going to look at my backswing and I'm going to see what I have in terms of shoulder turn. So what I'm going to do is, once again, you're looking at my sternum, and I'm basically going to sit tall, squeeze the ball, and just turn to my right. And what I'm going to try to get to is see, without forcing it, how far I can turn. Right now I can turn with my sternum turning. That's the key, is once again look and see what the sternum's doing, is how far is the sternum turning. And from where the stick started, it was pointing straight out to my left. It's now basically getting just about to where my left knee is, right? So maybe that's about 45 or 50 degrees of turn, right? I know I'm a little tight there, and so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a mobility exercise, the best mobility exercise to quickly open up your T-spine so you have more shoulder turn into your backswing and we can become more consistent and more powerful. Okay, so now we're into trying to increase my shoulder turn, my mobility into the backswing, right? To do that, there's all sorts of ways that you can try it with foam rollers, lacrosse balls, all kinds of different things. What I'm going to tell you and show you is the fastest way to do it. And if you have what we call a functional deficit, which just means it's muscle and soft tissues that are restricting you, then for a lot of people it'll start to open up in just a few minutes, not weeks, in just a few minutes. So here's what we do. We have a PowerCore 360 torso harness on. That's hooking right to the rib cage. The rib cage are connected to the thoracic spine. So once again, we're trying to get to the T-spine. I'm going to try to increase my thoracic spine or my shoulder turn, not through my hands and arms, but get directly into the thoracic spine. The harness goes around that area, and I have a band hooked under my left underarm. The band's hooked to my right, and right now it's pulling me that direction. I'm going to show you now the fastest drill, the fastest way to do this. I'm going to turn to where that band is directly behind my right shoulder. I'm going to sit tall, I'm going to squeeze the ball, I'm going to sit up tall where I'm going to align my spine, I'm squeezing the ball here, and all I'm going to do is turn to the right. I'm going to get to where, once again, my sternum kind of stops right there. Now here's where it all comes together. The band is pulling me that direction. If I just relax, the band would take me straight back into extension. I don't want extension, I want rotation, I want turn here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the band to pull on the harness and help me turn a little further. I'm going to get to my end range. I'm going to take a deep breath in. I'm going to exhale. And as I exhale, it's kind of cool the way the body works with a little bit of pull, a little bit of assistance and integrating breathing with it. If it's a functional deficit, just muscle tissue, soft tissue, it's going to allow me to turn a little further. I'm going to do that 2 more times. Deep breath in. Exhale. Turn. Deep breath in, exhale, turn. So you can see I'm starting to increase my turn, my mobility. I'm going to do 3 sets of 3 reps with this real quickly. I'm going to go back to the front, back to the beginning, turn to my right, get to the end range. It's already starting to open up. Deep breath in, exhale, turn. Deep breath in. Now I'm not forcing this, I'm just allowing the breathing and the pull of the band to slowly allow my T-spine to open up, to mobilize a little bit. I'm going to scoot out just a hair. I want a little bit more resistance, a little bit more pull to help me pull into that. Get to my end range, deep breath in, exhale, turn. Awesome. Relax. So what's going to happen is I'm going to unhook the band and I'm going to sit back and face the camera. I'm going to put this back in here and I'm just looking to see, did I gain any mobility, any shoulder turn to my right. So I'm going to squeeze here and now I'm going to turn, and you can see before the stick got basically to my knee, and now I've just gotten probably another 20 or 30, maybe 20 degrees in this case. So using the harness, using the bands, using the breathing, and a little assistance from the pull of the band, I've actually been able to open up my thoracic spine, my shoulder turn, in the direction of my backswing. Okay, so I've just done the mobility exercise, and I want to see what impact it has on my actual ability to turn my shoulders in the golf swing. So I'm going to set up an address. I'm going to do my nice connected backswing, and I want to just see how far can I get my shoulders turn and my hips turn, and you get in a position where that club shaft is closer to parallel. And you can see it's not quite there, still a little tightness and a little restriction, but not bad for 62. At the same time, I want to make sure that I haven't changed my spine angle once again. I want to rotate around that spine angle, do that same motion, be able to get up into that position, be able to keep my head down on the ball, and be in a good position that I'm consistent. I can turn around my spine, I can turn around my hips. And now as I come down, I'm going to be able to just rotate my body in the right sequence to be able to go hips, shoulder, clubs through the ball and be consistent with that body movement every time. So shoulder turn is a huge piece of that. Mobility in the backswing is a huge piece of that. All right, so I want to show you a really practical drill hitting the ball after you've done your mobility exercises. You've opened up your shoulder turn to the right. Now we're going to put a club in our hands and we're going to go hit some easy balls, right? So I'm going to get into my address posture and I'm going to work on this power V position, the position of my arms, and I'm just going to work on my backswing nice and slow, staying connected, trying to turn my sternum and keep my arms in that power V position as long as I can and really feel what it feels like to have that connectedness. What you'll feel from that is your shots will be much more consistent. You'll be able to stay more on plane, on path. The timing and sequence will be better. You'll also see that the direction of the ball is more consistent, and what you might really be happy about is the power is going to be increased as well. In part 2 of this series, I'll show you how your T-spine turn impacts your downswing and your consistency. See you then, and thanks for joining us. You've just been geeked. If you like this video, please subscribe below.